Chapter 408. It was common knowledge that extraordinaries had yet to appear within the burner community. But by controlling the special deep blue platform and mounting weapons, they could achieve extremely high destructive power. Any extraordinaries would have to kneel if they were equipped with a nuclear warhead with a yield of 10 million tons. Luo Nan knew this, but he didn't think about it. He was reminded by Papercut and suddenly had a new train of thought. B+ rank burners. I remember Sister Yuan saying that they all hold the rank of general? Yeah. There are some people with real power who control quite a bit of the special forces of the field army. For example, the coastal defense force closest to Xia City, where Secretary He's father worked and where Crack Burst was a part of, has a special combat brigade. The commander of that brigade is a high-ranking major general called Tian Bang. He's a pretty awesome character. Tian Bang. Yeah. He has the same surname as that senior of yours, but he shouldn't be related. He's an orphan. He participated in the Deep Blue Platform project since he was young and underwent deep remodeling. Of course, this is internal information. It only circulates in the inner world. Luo Nan nodded. I understand. If an orphan or a young child participated in the remodeling of burners, it would be hard for people not to suspect the lower limits of the government and the military. This was undoubtedly something that those in power did their utmost to avoid. Is this person Tian Bang? The coastal defense base isn't that far from Xia City. It's hard to say. I haven't seen him yet. I just heard that he floats on the sea all year round, taking turns to fight with the marine mutants. He's an extremely powerful combat type. This is troublesome. Papercut's brows furrowed tightly as he spoke. The branch's intelligence department didn't react to such a powerful person entering Xia City. It doesn't seem like he came in fair and square. Really? Luo Nan was quite calm. It didn't matter if it was Tian Bang or not. He definitely didn't have any ill intentions. Let's contact Secretary. It's best if we ask her father if he knows anything. If it really is Tian Bang, then this is quite a taboo. Luo Nan tried to contact He Yuan, then he shrugged. He still couldn't contact He Yuan. He could only leave a message explaining the latest situation and his judgment. Right now, Xia Junping was still talking over the phone about Pan Juling's background. Zhu Maoxuan was still stomping his feet, his emotions stirred. It was as if he was the one being bullied. Only Mo Peng and Luo Biao were able to exchange a few curses with him. Most people could only watch coldly from the sidelines. Only Chiu Peipei's family had the qualifications to sue or to settle. Luo Nan and the others could only act as parties and witnesses, providing testimony. Going back and forth like this, he felt more and more bored. Papercut was really worried that Luo Nan wouldn't be able to take it and cause more trouble. He pulled Luo Nan to the corner of the sofa, talking as they walked. This is why many people don't like the secular world. When it came down to it, there were a bunch of rules. The more people he knew, the more restrictions there were. Look at Lazy, that punch was really cool, but it's going to take a long time. He might even have to go to court. Luo Nan sat down on the sofa. This time Luo Nan paid more attention to Cat Eyes. Papercut was between him and Cat Eyes. Brother Papercut, how do you usually handle things? Me. In the middle of the night he sent a bunch of paper dolls to his house for a party. Yeah, that's about it. Luo Nan felt that Luo Nan's expression was certainly very peculiar right now. Papercut chuckled. With supernatural powers, how could I still strictly follow the logic of the secular world? Unless this world has enough power to counter us. On the sofa, Cat Eyes gently swirled her wine glass and cast a sidelong glance. You're sick. Papercut didn't get angry. I'm just saying, right? Also, put yourself in the shoes of others. If you use abnormal logic to deal with others, others will use abnormal logic to deal with you. We're in Xia City, so it's a bit better. Look at Red Fox. He was eradicating evil and eliminating evil, but what happened to him in the end? Sometimes I really want to be controlled by someone. I want to follow a set of rules and live a peaceful life. Headquarters might have been able to do it in the past. Unfortunately, it's impossible to count on those bastards right now. Luo Nan handed over a fruit platter as a form of consolation. He asked casually, how many ability users are like you guys? Papercut picked up a few apple slices. What do you mean by like you guys? Luo Nan thought for a moment and said, you guys have a proper job in society, earn money to support yourself, and follow the rules of the secular world most of the time. Of the ability users he knew, Cat Eyes taught dancing, Papercut had his own craft store. Octopus and Mr. White were doctors. Mr. Giant Arm ran a dojo, and Her Majesty Empress Wu ran a firm. They were all very close to the secular world. However, there were also people like President Ouyang who wholeheartedly devoted themselves to research. There were also people like Bamboo Pole who were more of a homebody and only served his peers. Crack Burst and Red Fox didn't have stable jobs either, but their days were still quite comfortable. Just like this, the inner world and the secular world converged and separated. It was complicated and interwoven. Many times it was impossible to grasp the corresponding pulse. It was very vexing. Papercut opened his mouth to answer, but he suddenly remembered that he still had a mission tonight. He turned his head with a smile and said to Cat Eyes, "How about you explain it a bit?" Cat Eyes' expression didn't change. She poured the peat-flavored wine down her throat. She sneered leisurely, but she was disinclined to pay attention to him. Papercut didn't insist. He shrugged and said, "This is the way of the world. The barrier between ability users and secular society is indeed getting thinner and thinner. There are people who oppose this trend. There are people who approve of it. There are people who let nature take its course. Xia City has fewer rules and regulations. There are many people who let nature take its course. But in other cities, there are quite a few people who are very passionate about infiltrating. They want to realize the era of ability users. There are also some people who are very determined to maintain their distance and maintain their bloodline." It was unknown which sentence aroused her interest, but Cat Eyes downed the wine in her cup in one gulp. She suddenly spoke. "Actually, they're all the same. The faction of people above people." Luo Nan understood in an instant. So they feel that they're higher than normal people? Misophobia or the desire to dominate. Cat Eyes laughed to herself as she spoke. She cast a sidelong glance at Luo Nan, for example a certain someone. Boss Luo. What do you think?" This topic was off topic. Plus, it didn't seem like an inquiry. It seemed more like sarcasm. Luo Nan didn't want to answer, nor did he feel the need to. Xia Junping just so happened to finish making a round of phone calls. He walked over and said, "Nanster, I got some information. That Zhu Ling is the son of Zhu Maoxuan's uncle. He joined the military many years ago. Recently he was transferred from the City Defense Army to the Coastal Defense Army. He's already a lieutenant colonel. I heard he's a burner." "Burner? The Coastal Defense Army?" Luo Nan and Papercut locked gazes. They immediately thought of the two people upstairs. No matter how many burners there were in Xia City, no matter how many talents there were in the Coastal Defense Army, they couldn't just randomly pick a B+ rank big shot, right? It's 80% likely. This damn luck. Who is it? Xia Junping didn't want to quarrel with that bro Zhu Maoxuan. He sat on the sofa, leaned back and groaned. Only now did he show a bit of the elegant demeanor of a hedonistic young master from before. Luo Nan observed a bit through the perspective of the living starry sky. He felt that Xia Junping's constellation projection really did have some subtle changes. However, the most important thing right now was to investigate the person suspected to be Tianbang. Luo Nan didn't have any enmity right now, but if a grudge were to form because of his relationship with Zhu Maoxuan and Zhu Ling, then it would be a headache to deal with it. Luo Nan was just about to go investigate when a voice rang out from the door. Everyone had sharp ears and eyes. They heard the voice over there. "Tun Si. You're here too? Perfect. Call everyone over. Let's discuss how to deal with this." Who was this? The voice was a bit familiar, but what left a deeper impression was the arrogant and bossy attitude. At first, one would think that a big boss like President Ouyang or Her Majesty Empress Wu had personally come. Luo Nan really didn't remember who it was for the time being, but Xia Junping, who had just relaxed, suddenly sat up straight. What's he doing here? In any case, he doesn't come with good intentions. This bro will seize the opportunity to put on a show or two. I'm afraid Tianxia won't be able to handle it. As he spoke, Xia Junping hastily got up and walked over. Luo Nan and Papercut glanced at each other. Luo Nan split a bit of attention to quickly confirm the other's identity. Chen Weiken, the vice president of the Student Council of Acumen College, the president of the Mutual Assistance Association. He had an elite face, but it was hard to have a good impression of this fellow. Right now, Chen Weiken was wearing a casual suit. It didn't quite match the atmosphere of Frost River reality. However, his posture was tall and straight. His every movement was very stylish. He really did attract the attention of others when he walked in through the door. However, if he were to maintain this posture and walk into the crowd, it was hard to say whether or not the loyal Shuelei would give him an iron fist. Chen Weikan didn't pay attention to Shuelei. It could be said that he didn't pay attention to anyone. He was just a bit dissatisfied with Tianxi, who stood there stiffly. Tianxi wasn't as quick-witted as usual, but he didn't say much. He just waved his hand and strengthened his body language. At the same time, he used his wristband to talk to someone else. I also hope that Frost River Reality can deal with this in a timely manner. I don't want the existence of some black sheep to affect the good reputation of the students. Alright, Mandarin. You'll be here soon, right? Alright, we'll talk when you arrive. Chen Weikan let out a light breath and his expression relaxed a bit. He turned his eyes and saw that Tianxi was still standing there. He was a bit surprised. Everyone has been summoned? Everyone is here. The police officer is here too. What's the point of summoning? Xia Junping walked closer and said with a chuckle, Vice President Chen, it's rare to see you come to a place like Frost River Reality. Which honored guest are you entertaining? Chen Weisan's gaze swept across Xia Junping's face. There was no emotion. There was no hostility. It was more like he was ignoring Xia Junping. But if one were to say that he was arrogant, it seemed that his mind was a bit scattered. Luo Nan observed and sensed from the side. It was a bit strange. However, what attracted his attention the most was the person Chen Weikan was talking to. His surname was Yin and he was the manager of Frost River Reality. Could it be? Before he could finish his thought, Luo Nan was reminded. He confirmed that a familiar target was approaching from far away. She had entered the edge of his sensing range and was rapidly closing in. Luo Nan no longer paid attention to how Chen Weikan and Xia Junping would negotiate. He sat on the sofa and his brows furrowed. He locked onto his target and watched her approach step by step. Not long after, Luo Nan was able to clearly perceive the sound of her footsteps through the deliberate filtering of his mental senses. The footsteps broke for a moment when they were about 30 meters apart, but they soon connected. Several seconds later, there was a knock on the door. A white-collared beauty with an outstanding temperament stepped into the room. Her makeup was exquisite, and her bearing was extraordinary. She perfectly displayed the most appropriate and mature style of a woman of her age. After she entered the room, she turned her gaze and took in the situation of the entire room. Her cold gaze paused slightly on Luo Nan's face before sweeping across Papercut, Cat Eyes and Shuelei. She concealed herself quite well. If Luo Nan had not anticipated this, he might have missed it. This kind of directionality meant that they were both in the same trade or enemies. There was no other possibility. Sure enough, it was Yin. Luo Nan was baffled. Why wasn't this sister holed up at home and properly serving the human-faced arachnid's avatar? What was she doing out here? Luo Nan's thoughts were extinguished, and his heart sank without the slightest warning. Well, that wasn't right. The signs existed and they clearly appeared above the living starry sky. At this moment, the B+ rank burner in the Long Willow Pavilion, who was several hundred meters away, suddenly surged with hostility. He pointed in the direction of the room and locked onto his target. Chapter 409. From Luo Nan's perspective, the other party's hostility was obvious. She had locked onto her target and would make a move in an instant. However, due to the gap in perception, the other people in the luxurious room did not react. Overall, the atmosphere was still very calm. Yinlu? Papercut recognized Yinlu. Yinli's identity in the inner world was semi-public. After all, the Frost River Waterway project relied on Frost River Reality to exist. It was a multifaceted collaboration. There needed to be a person overseeing the project to make everyone feel at ease. Papercut knew, but he did not take the initiative to greet her. He could see that Yinlu was not in a good mood. His gaze swept across the room and the smile on his face, which could still be considered professional, was about to disappear. Papercut chuckled. She seems to have a problem with you. Luo Nan grunted. He was not surprised. From Yinli's perspective, Luo Nan could be considered the main culprit behind all the turmoil at the Frost River Reality flagship store on Fudong Main Street. It started with him. He catalyzed the escalation of conflicts. In the end, the gold-sucking pool with a daily revenue of over 10 million became a bottomless pit that needed to be renovated. It had yet to recover to this day. Other people might not know the twists and turns, but how could Yinlu, the vice-ablatum of the Blood Flame Order, not know? Luo Nan had seen her through the Wraith sign at least 2 or 3 times recently. She had expressed her grievances during the high-level meetings of the Blood Flame Order. The depth of her grievances could be seen. Now that she saw Luo Nan again and gave him trouble, Yinlu did not immediately lose her temper. This showed that she had cultivated herself well. Luo Nan did not have the time to understand Yinlu's thoughts. He leaned back on the sofa. His eyes looked empty, but they were actually transparent. The focus of his attention jumped from the B+ rank burner to Yinlu, and then to the human-faced arachnid avatar that accompanied Yinlu. After all, this fellow truly belonged to him. Right now, the Wraith sign was habitually hiding at the border between the Abyss region and the Polar domain. This was a domain that 99% of ability users would find hard to reach. No one but Luo Nan could detect the Wraith sign in the room. The Wraith sign was like a greedy beast. Its 6 pupils circulated with colorful light as it instinctively searched the area for a target it could eat. As his level of power increased, the average emotional turbid flow was no longer attractive to the Wraith sign. Ordinary aptitude users were nothing to him. Apart from the fact that their instincts to devour their own kind still existed, their diet was getting narrower and narrower. It was precisely because of this that the Blood Flame Order's members were so moved by the hunting of the winghand vampire bats this morning. Soon, the Wraith sign searched the vicinity of the luxurious room. It didn't have the guts to touch its true master, Luo Nan. The rest of the ability users didn't enter its eyes. From this point of view, the current Wraith sign was a picky eater. It wouldn't eat it rashly. It was extremely easy to raise. It was also a street sweeper that devoured the avatars of other faced spiders. Its contribution to society had skyrocketed. Luo Nan laughed involuntarily when his thoughts reached this point. But soon he was unable to laugh. B+ rank burners were already extremely profound on the spiritual plane. When their hostility manifested, the pressure was even greater. At this time they had already entered the Abyss region and continued to explore deeper, searching level by level. Yes, search, that's right. Luo Nan finally understood. It was a bit far-fetched to say that the B+ rank burner was targeting Yinlu. After all, Yinlu was a famous character in both the mortal world and the inner world. A suspected important member of the military actually wanted to set up a trap to target her. There were many aspects that didn't make sense. But if the factor of the human-faced arachnid was added, the relevant reason instantly became sufficient. After all, the human-faced arachnid was the most dangerous Darksider life form that the military and political departments of Xia City had joined hands to obliterate. This reason alone was enough to suppress everything else. Luo Nan saw a wisp of fiery smoke continue to spiral upwards. The Abyss region wasn't enough. It continued to go deeper, gradually approaching the boundary between the Abyss region and the Polar region. The most terrifying thing was the aura of life within the fiery smoke. It was a faint wisp, but its foundation was strong. It was like the fragrance of meat. The fragrance rose in spirals after being roasted by the smoke and fire. The human-faced arachnid hadn't been found yet, but this idiot, driven by instinct, was gradually unable to restrain himself from the fragrance of meat that drifted over. It became quite restless. If Luo Nan's thoughts hadn't intervened in time, this idiot would have probably charged over in delight. Then it would fall headfirst into the trap. Now the situation was clear. This was a trap. A trap targeted at Yinlu, targeted at the human-faced arachnid, and even targeted at the Blood Flame Order. Qin Weiqin was the bait of the real world. He had lured Yinlu over. The B+ rank burner was the hunter. He specialized in targeting the human-faced arachnid. He had used a technique to lure it. These two might not be the only participants. The officer called Zhu was most likely one of them. And no matter how many participants there were, no matter which power was behind the scenes, one thing was certain. They had obtained extremely accurate information. Think about it. How long had it been since Yinlu took control of the human-faced arachnid? It had only been this afternoon. The first grazing hadn't even begun yet, but the other party was already certain that the human-faced arachnid was by her side and had set up a trap targeting her. This was the tempo of a traitor. The faces of the upper echelons of the Blood Flame Order instantly flashed in Luo Nan's mind. Unfortunately, his understanding of this group of people was still superficial over the past month. It was far too difficult to find the so-called traitor. He took a deep breath and steadied his mind. The B+ rank burner was not targeting Luo Nan. but his target was undoubtedly the Wraith sign. As one of Luo Nan's most important believers, the Wraith sign was once the sole reliance of Luo Nan's mental attacks. Even now, the Wraith sign held a pivotal position in Luo Nan's sealing system. Therefore, Luo Nan received an astonishing pressure from the living starry sky while the other party was unaware of it. The starry sky fluctuated from nothing, and it seemed to grow more and more intense. This was definitely not going to work. Luo Nan didn't have the time to think too much. He first overstepped his boundaries and stepped over Yin Lu. He gave the Wraith sign an order. Go deeper. Go deeper. Luo Nan let this idiot dive deeper into the mental plane and play hide and seek with the other party. As long as the other party could not truly lock onto the Wraith sign's position, it would be hard for him to determine Yin Li's position. It was possible to delay for a period of time. The short-term results were fine. The other party had been using his baiting methods for a long time, but he had gained nothing. He was already a bit puzzled. The mental smoke began to change directions substantially, doing even more useless work. Luo Nan let out a breath of relief. Right now, Yin Lu was completely unaware of the impending crisis in the room. She was just negotiating with Chen Weiqian. Her professional attitude was top-notch. Luo Nan didn't care what they said. At most he was curious. Was this fellow Chen Weiqian purely a bait tool, or was he a participant with autonomous capabilities? Yes, let's let the details go for now. Driving the Wraith sign to temporarily hide in the polar domain was the only thing Luo Nan could do from a technical point of view. But this kind of hiding could not last long. Let alone others, even Yin Lu herself would panic if this continued for too long. The connection between the Wraith sign and Yin Lu was extremely weak when hidden in the polar domain. This could very well lead to new misunderstandings. Pfft. Who cares what misunderstandings she has? It would be smoother to consider things from his own perspective. Luo Nan's heart thumped. He had enough headaches lately because of the matter with the Wraith sign. It was said to fish in troubled waters. Perhaps this was an opportunity. If he could really take advantage of the chaos to retrieve the Wraith sign and throw the blame onto the military, then wouldn't it be the best course of action for him to stay out of the matter? Luo Nan couldn't help but ponder upon this thought. He was calculating how many resources he could use. His thoughts drifted and he suddenly noticed the temporary mission window on the psychic wave network. There were only a few messages left and he was suddenly stunned. Last time at Frost River Reality it was more or less like this, right? He was even more selfless than this. He wholeheartedly wanted to save people and then he messed things up and got out of hand. Right now he had Papercut, Cat Eyes and Xue Lei by his side. It was true that these were his helpers, but how dangerous would it be to face a B+ level power? Not to mention his own brothers and sisters, classmates and so on. Bang. Luo Nan smacked his own head. What's wrong? Papercut was baffled. Nothing. I've cleared my head. Luo Nan let out a breath. He was a bit annoyed. He Yuan had been exhorting him to his face every time she gave him a lesson. She told him to pay attention to teamwork and other matters. Why did he nearly act willfully when things came to this? You need to grow up a bit. Luo Nan muttered to himself. Papercut thought that Luo Nan was talking to him and didn't hear him clearly. He asked, "What did you say?" Luo Nan laughed. Tonight's gathering will end here. Staying here will just be watching people act cool. It's better to leave. Papercut swept his gaze over to Chen Weiqian and laughed. A wise choice. Then let's go. Luo Nan's mind was set. He didn't hesitate any longer. He simply stood up and headed outside. His movement was not a big deal, but Yin Lu instinctively became alert. She couldn't be blamed for this. After the two incidents at Frost River Reality and Ocean Sky Cloud City, Luo Nan's reputation had rapidly spread throughout the inner world. He had established a benchmark. Right now, who didn't know that Luo Nan of the Xia City branch was a young man capable of tossing and turning? His talent was outstanding and he was vicious and merciless. Snake Tongue, Puppeteer, Tank and other veteran ability users had all fallen to his hands. Especially Snake Tongue. Yin Li's position in the inner world was roughly the same as Snake Tongue's. Such a shrewd and powerful curse master was gone just like that. How could Yin Lu not be vigilant? Chen Weiqian had been talking to Yin Lu, but he saw her mind wander. He followed her line of sight and finally noticed Luo Nan. As a leading figure for many years, Chen Weiqian was extremely sensitive to the general atmosphere. He soon discovered that this boy who was walking outside had a childish air about him. Not only did he attract Yin Li's attention, even Xie Junping, Hu Huaying, Tianxi, and the others naturally focused their gazes on him. The degree of focus and intensity had already exceeded the scope of normal attention. The conversation that had been within his control suddenly couldn't continue. At this time Xie Junping opened his mouth and asked, "Nanster you?" Luo Nan laughed, "Everything's fine here. Let's go home." Xie Junping was stunned. But when he heard these words, even Cat Eyes, who was usually indifferent to him on the sofa, stood up with a cold snort. Tianxi, Papercut, Shuele, and the others directly started walking. They felt inexplicably excited. He shrugged and pushed Du Yong, who still didn't know what was going on, to keep up with them. He laughed and said, "Then let's get out of here." Several people moved, forming a chain effect. Hu Huaying, Mo Peng, Luo Biao, and the others instinctively moved as well. The standoff in the private room suddenly collapsed. For the fastest and most accurate novel reading, please visit Chapter 410. The group of people didn't leave just like that. Some people, like Luo Nan, had already unloaded their peripheral equipment due to the haste of the incident just now. Others hadn't. Even if they wanted to leave, they had to finish their business. The room was in a mess. But no matter how chaotic it was, everything was in accordance with Luo Nan's will. It didn't matter what Qin Weiqin said at this time. It was meaningless. Qin Weiqin did not look too good. His failure to control the field was secondary. The most crucial problem was that his target Yin Lu had clearly been affected by Luo Nan. She was a bit absent-minded and probably had thoughts of leaving. Chen Weizan's thoughts spun rapidly and he decided to make some slight adjustments. He took advantage of the fact that Luo Nan had yet to leave the room to greet him. "Fellow student, I remember that you're also a student of our school. Regarding this matter, I think we should maintain close communication." Chen Weizan's memory could be considered excellent, but it was useless. In any case, Luo Nan had no intention of cooperating with this person. His gaze streaked across Chen Weizan's face, and he used his chin to point at Zhu Maoxuan, who was still accumulating rage points. Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. As long as we remember him, we don't care about anything else. You guys talk faster, thief. Zhu Maoxuan couldn't take the provocation. He stomped his feet and wanted to hit someone, but the police were right in front of him. His group of friends were afraid that he would suffer a loss, so they pulled him back one after another. Luo Nan was disinclined to pay attention to the farce over there. He walked straight over. Qin Weiqin inexplicably moved his body to the side when faced with Luo Nan's gaze, giving him some space. However, it was difficult for him to correct himself. One figure after another followed, including Tianxi. This beautiful subordinate who had been working by his side for many years was gone. She walked past him expressionlessly. "You're playing this game too?" Qin Weiqin felt an impulse and said in a commanding tone, "Tianxi, stay here." Just last weekend when he spoke like this, Tianxi still showed the respect of a subordinate. Now Tianxi was indeed reacting. She paused and turned sideways as if by instinct. But in the next second she retracted her gaze and completely ignored Qin Weiqin, who was right in front of her. She pointed at the police officer who had not spoken for a long time. "Mr. Officer, have you gone through all the procedures?" "Yes." "According to our previous agreement, as long as the relevant party issues an explanation, the guardian can wait until the injury examination is finalized before considering whether or not to notify the guardian." The police officer had been ignored for a long time. Finally, someone seriously asked for his opinion and his attitude was very good. "Yes, as long as you remember to follow the police's request and provide a timely explanation, it'll be fine." "Thank you." Tianxi bowed politely and left. From start to finish he didn't even look at Qin Weiqin. Qin Weizan's face darkened visibly. He subconsciously raised his arm wanting to do something, but with a bunch of people watching him, this embarrassing action was eventually controlled. Luo Nan was the first to go out, but he had a clear understanding of the events that occurred afterwards. He had a guess in his heart. Qin Weiqin was more or less autonomous, but he seemed to know very little about the inner world. Perhaps he had just come into contact with this domain, or perhaps he had been on the fringes for many years. The latter was more likely. Looking at the connections, this trap targeted at Yin Lu and the human-faced arachnid was certainly organized. The possibility of him being from the military was higher. Qin Weizan's background was also closer to the military. Since that was the case, It was best to ask He Yuan about the relevant questions. But up until now there had been no reply from the temporary mission window. The sound of footsteps approached from behind and Tianxi took 2 quick steps to catch up. Her attitude was different from the cold and aloof one in the room. She was a bit nervous right now. She called out Junior, but she probably felt that it wasn't too appropriate. She ended up cutting it short. Luo Nan's mind was like a clear mirror. He knew that it wasn't easy for Tianxi to decisively choose a side after years of resistance. Even though this kind of decisive choice was a bit too much. He didn't have any ill feelings toward Tianxi. Moreover, he felt a bit apologetic because of the matter at Ocean Sky Cloud City. He didn't want Tianxi to be overly worried and fearful, so he turned his head and smiled to comfort her. Then he thought of Qin Weisan's position in the school. He was afraid that Qin Weikan would make things difficult for Tianxi later, so he said, "Senior sister, you're about to take the postgraduate exam. It's fine to let go of some school affairs." His words were simple but Tianxi misunderstood. She immediately said, "I'll resign from my position in the Mutual Assistance Society when I get back." Holy crap. Luo Biao, who had followed them out, gasped in surprise. He couldn't help but move closer to Mo Peng's ear. "Hey Nanster, you're a big shot now?" Mo Peng had been stupefied for a long time. He was affected by the atmosphere back in the room, so he unconsciously followed them out. Now he came to a realization. Why was it that when Nanster moved, half the people in the room followed him? It must be known that practically everyone here was older than Luo Nan. Not to mention Tianxi, Xie Junping and Hu Huaying were even cadres of the student council. Their family backgrounds were quite extraordinary. But these people all had Luo Nan as their axis. They naturally didn't have a trace of reluctance. This didn't make sense. Mo Peng was stupefied when Mo Han, who was accompanying Chiu Peipei, called, "Is everything all right over there?" No. Actually, Mo Peng didn't know whether or not this counted as an issue. Mo Han believed him. She just told him, "Yu Qin just asked me for Luo Nan's number. Is the police's judgment leaning more toward us?" Yeah. If you want it, then you want it. If you don't, then it'll be too late." Huh. Luo Nan heard the conversation between Mo Peng and the others clearly from up front. This gave him a reminder. He immediately discussed with Papercut in a low voice, "Mo Han and the others are still in the hospital. Take them away. Don't stay here any longer." Papercut was startled. He finally felt that Luo Nan wanted to leave. Aside from not wanting to cause trouble, there seemed to be some special considerations. Is something the matter? This message was sent to the temporary mission window. Cat Eyes and Shuelei could see it and their gazes immediately shot over. Luo Nan also responded from the mission window. That B+ rank doesn't seem to be here purely for a meal. In reality, there was certainly some other plan. It was just that Luo Nan didn't want to talk about the details of the human-faced arachnid and the blood flame order. Papercut didn't know this. He asked, "It's not targeted at us, right?" "It should be." Luo Nan sensed something before Papercut could fall. The B+ rank burner was still searching, but the direction of his mental smoke was no longer in the abyss region or the polar domain. Instead, he quietly turned back to touch the area where their group was located. What was going on? Did he start to change his train of thought because he couldn't find the human-faced arachnid? That side was quite confident in their source of information. Luo Nan's lips curled. He was worried that the Wraith sign would hide in the polar domain for too long, creating unnecessary misunderstandings for Yin Lu. Since the burners had changed their train of thought a step ahead, Luo Nan took advantage of the situation. He pulled the Wraith sign out of the polar domain for a breather. It was the same as playing hide and seek. As it turned out, Luo Nan's choice was extremely timely. Yin Lu was clearly a bit restless in the luxurious room at this time. The appearance of Luo Nan and the other members of the Xia City branch had already made her vigilant. The human-faced arachnid's ambiguous attitude put a great deal of pressure on a newbie like her. The human-faced arachnid's clone promptly returned to its normal area, allowing Yin Lu to let out a secret sigh of relief. However, she was a priest who had cultivated for a long time. She more or less had some intuition. The slight disharmony she experienced over and over again formed a rather negative psychological suggestion. It made her want to retreat spontaneously. These changes were all reflected subtly in the living starry sky. How interesting. Luo Nan subconsciously grinned. He wasn't a heart-reading demon. He was unable to see through Yin Li's specific thoughts, but he was able to observe all sorts of details, piecing them together to form an approximate judgment. Right now, Luo Nan relied on his mental senses to deeply enter the vast material plane and the mental plane. He had a rough grasp of the picture of life of tens of thousands of living beings. From this, he formed a relatively abstract living starry sky. He could feel the minute changes created by various factors such as emotions. As his observation experience grew and his understanding of the development of the situation deepened, the layers, angles, and details that he had unconsciously overlooked in the past gradually gained practical significance. He could more easily organize and generalize, forming a comprehensive, three-dimensional and intuitive picture of observation. It was like playing a map cheat and playing a strategy game with a group of opponents submerged in the fog of war. There was a sense of superiority in beating him up in all aspects. Of course, if Luo Nan truly believed that he was beating him up in all aspects, it could only mean that Luo Nan had lost his mind. AB+ rank burner, an organized and premeditated action trap. This was the tempo of the base's technology tree rising to the top. If the other party really wanted to make things difficult for him, then he could just use his normal attacks to blow up this side. At this stage, Luo Nan could only play 2 games of hide and seek. Then he would run as far away as he could until the game ended. Pay attention to the one in front. Papercut suddenly sent a warning from the temporary mission window. His gaze is unfriendly. Luo Nan's mind temporarily withdrew from the macroscopic picture. He raised his eyes to look forward. Right now, the group of people were about to enter the elevator in the lobby of the amusement park. And at the edge of the crowded entrance stood a 30-year-old youth. He released his aura, completely unrestrained. He was a burner. This life sketch looks very familiar. Luo Nan quickly confirmed that this person was the one following the B+ rank powerhouse. Perhaps it was because of the strong first impression, but this person's ramrod straight figure looked very much like a soldier, even though he was dressed in casual clothes. This person didn't avoid the gazes of Luo Nan and the others, but he didn't respond either. His gaze swept past their faces one by one and he just watched quietly. He was like a relatively eye-catching passerby. It looks like he's counting heads? This person seems a bit inexperienced. He's a lackey. A few ability users were discussing in private when Xie Junping suddenly came over and whispered, "He's Zhu Ling. I just saw his photo. There's no mistake." Really? Luo Nan was a bit surprised, but he did see traces of a silhouette that was similar to Zhu Maoxuan's from this person's face. Zhu Ling didn't have that much of an evil aura compared to his cousin. However, his gaze was calm and straightforward. It made people a bit unhappy when they stared at him. The group of people still hadn't figured out how to deal with this when the mission window suddenly flickered and jumped. He Yuan, who hadn't replied all this time, contacted them through instant messaging. Luo Nan and the others greeted her one after another. "Sister Yuan." "Hello, secretary." From the video it could be seen that He Yuan was multitasking. He was contacting someone. Her brows were slightly furrowed and she wasn't in a good mood. She hung up after several seconds and focused on this side. "Apologies, Mr. Luo. Apologies, everyone. I just saw this, but there's a matter that just so happens to be related to you." Without any pleasantries, He Yuan sent over an electronic file. The format was extremely formal, and it clearly bore the authority seal of a government department. He Yuan explained further. The Xia City Police and military received a reliable tip that traces of the human-faced arachnid's clone were discovered in the vicinity of Cloud City Water Village. They decided to launch a search operation at the last minute. According to the agreement they reached with the society a month ago, they hope that the nearby members of the society will cooperate. It can't be. Xia City hasn't been swept clean yet? Xue Lei had confronted the human-faced arachnid head-on before. He had a deep impression of the formless and shadowless demon. He immediately drew in a cold breath. Papercut was more concerned with practical issues. Did they say how to cooperate? He Yuan opened the electronic file and indicated to Luo Nan and the others to look at the highlighted paragraphs. They demand that all members of the society within a radius of 15 kilometers, with the main building of Cloud City Water Village as the center, must report their current location and go to a designated location to record their privileges. They want to clear the area? Yes. In principle, no ability user is allowed to stay within this area. After recording their privileges, The members who wish to participate must obey the commands of the military and police. The military and political departments and the society will give corresponding rewards. Those who don't wish to participate must quickly leave the scene to avoid the human-faced arachnids' invasion. While He Yuan was explaining, Luo Nan and the others had already waited for the elevator to arrive. They poured into the same elevator. Who knew that Zhu Ling, who had been observing with cold eyes all this time, would suddenly take 2 quick steps forward, openly following them. The gazes of several ability users gouged at Zhu Ling's face at the same time, but Zhu Ling pretended not to notice. Luo Nan sized up Zhu Ling a few times. At the same time he sent a message through the mission window. This document was sent within 5 minutes, right? 4 minutes and 20 seconds ago. This job. Luo Nan gasped in surprise. He had gotten through all of Xia City's military and political departments in one afternoon. As soon as he failed to lure the human-faced arachnid's clone, he immediately caused a big scene. He even gave the green light all the way. Even the society was mobilized. This further confirmed his previous conjecture. It was very likely that Xia City's military and political departments were leading this operation. He could see their determination even more clearly. Sure enough, relying on a cheating device to hide and seek wasn't a long-term solution. Leaving the battlefield as soon as possible was the wisest choice. However, the other side didn't want to let go so easily. Luo Nan gave Zhu Ling another glance. He wanted to probe deeper, but he was worried that Mo Peng and the others were present. He cast a glance at Papercut. Papercut understood tacitly. His fat face instantly revealed a pleasantly surprised smile. Hey? Little Ling, that's you, right? Zhu Ling was stunned. He didn't have time to react before Papercut grabbed him. Aha, I'm definitely not mistaken. I've seen your photo before. You look so handsome even without your military uniform. Chapter 411. In the elevator, no matter if it was Xie Junping who didn't understand or Mo Peng Robio, and the others who didn't know what was going on, they all felt their faces twitch when they saw Zhu Ling, a handsome man with a cold face, being crowned with the title of stupidly cute. The atmosphere was very subtle. Luo Nan was also doing his best to ensure that his facial muscles didn't go out of control. But he had already been named to help out, so he could only say hello. In the end he couldn't help but grin. Little Ling cough, what a coincidence. The temporary mission window jumped and cat eyes sent over a one-word evaluation. Fake. Of course it's fake. This sort of name that deliberately took advantage of others had more or less broken through Luo Nan's bottom line. Fortunately, Papercut, who was an actor, took on the atmosphere. His affectionate expression didn't diminish and Zhu Ling wasn't really stupid. He hooked his lips and really called out, "Brother Papercut." In any case, this chance encounter was finally completed. The elevator went down and soon reached the 55th floor. This was the hospital where Chiu Peipei was staying. Tianxi came back to her senses at this time. No matter what, she first invited Mo Ping and the other young boys and girls out of the elevator. Then she said to Luo Nan, "Why don't you guys chat first? We'll go see Peipei and pick up Xiao Han and the others along the way." Luo Nan shot a glance at Zhu Ling and nodded. Go then. We'll be there in a bit." As he spoke, he winked at Xie Junping, telling the group of people to follow him and not delay things here. Very quickly the place was cleared. Only the 4 people from the association and Zhu Ling were left. A total of 5 people stood in the elevator, silently confronting each other. When Mo Peng and the others turned around, both sides wiped away their fake expressions. Papercut said unhappily, "You guys from the military do things in such an imposing manner. You ask for access to the human records at the drop of a hat. What's the reason? The government and the military have the right to ask any law-abiding citizen to show proof of social authority and cooperate in the performance of public security obligations." Zhu Ling stood ramrod straight, enduring the penetrating gazes of several ability users. There was no fear on his face and his mouth was also very sharp. But in the end he still narrated the reason that everyone was well aware of. The target of our search is the human-faced arachnid. It is very likely that this kind of Darksider life form is attached to an ability user's body. It crosses the sea while deceiving everyone. The relevant examination is necessary. Papercut asked, "What about normal people? There are tens of thousands of people upstairs and downstairs and you want to search them one by one?" Zhu Ling answered simply, At this stage, the human-faced arachnid that remains will no longer be interested in normal people. Correspondingly, their desire to hunt ability users will become even stronger, which is why no ability user is an exception. Luonan raised his eyebrows slightly. This guy really understood. According to his intentions, Yin Lu, the vice officiant of the Blood Flame Order, had to make a trip as well. Was he trying to alert the enemy? Papercut spread his hands. We've already met. Does this count as a pass? Zhu Ling fully displayed the principles of a soldier. I'm sorry, but we need to make thorough preparations. Papercut gave Luonan an inquiring look, and Luonan slowly nodded. Saying anything more would just be a waste of time. What's the big deal about going along with him? Luonan really wanted to see just what sort of method the military would use to search out the human-faced arachnid's avatar. After experiencing it for real, he knew that the matter of recording permissions was quite convenient in terms of form. The military temporarily commandeered a certain office area of Aurora Cloud City and set up the relevant equipment. All one needed to do was wear a wristband and walk around the room according to the requirements of the military's technicians. The relevant information regarding the recording would enter the database jointly managed by the government and the society. It wouldn't be made public. At least in name, the members of the society wouldn't be able to say anything. The 4 members of the society entered the room one by one. Luonan was the last. The first 3 people passed without a hitch. When it came to Luonan, things went quite smoothly. But of course, Luonan walked through the room filled with sensing devices. He simply ignored all sorts of waveforms. These were just smoke screens. The true detection method was actually on the mental plane. It was that wisp of faintly discernible smoke. It came from the suspected person. It was no longer suspected. He Yuan had confirmed their guesses. The frontline commander of this operation was Major General Tian Bang of the Coastal Defense Army's Special Warfare Brigade. It was said that the Xia city government had specially invited this person over. Luonan had reservations about this. Even though this person was a burner, his operations on the mental plane were already extremely exquisite. Compared to Fairchild, Luonan's finesse was a level higher. He was even above many mentally enhanced people. The mental smoke lingered inside and outside their domains. It was an attempt to use its unique nature to induce the instincts of the human-faced arachnid. Cat Eyes and Papercut were both mentally enhanced, but they didn't detect it at all. Luonan slowly walked out of the room and glanced to the side. There were fully armed deep blue walkers standing guard to the side. They were clearly in a state where they were ready to go. This posture wasn't too friendly. Perhaps it was because of this that Zhu Ling had been accompanying them in casual clothes to dilute the hostile atmosphere. When Luonan came out, he heard Zhu Ling giving Papercut and the others a job. Everyone, are you really not going to participate? The rewards for this operation are quite considerable. Papercut grunted and grunted in response. He simply pointed to Luonan when he saw him come out. We'll listen to the boss. Zhu Ling didn't get this internal joke, but he was very clear about Luonan's special position in this group of people. Even if he didn't know before, he now knew the things he needed to know after integrating the information he had access to. An extremely dangerous person who could control a mutant, who could use his power to replace the perpetual fortifications with an infrasonic array, and who could instantly turn an entire city district into a land of death. Of course he could be the boss. He had to be the boss. Zhu Ling immediately cast an inquiring gaze. Luonan hooked his lips. I won't be participating tonight. My first priority is to ensure that my family and friends are far away from danger. I hope the military can keep the situation under control. This is our duty. But it's still a pity that I missed an opportunity to fight shoulder to shoulder with Mr. Luo. Zhu Ling deliberately reached over and shook Luonan's hand. I'm very sorry. Mao Xuan, that idiot, had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I hope that Mr. Luo won't bother with him. Of course, I was also stupid at the time. No matter what Luonan thought, Zhu Ling's attitude was impeccable. Luonan could tell from this that under his cold and arrogant exterior was an exquisite heart that understood propriety and the ways of the world. Luonan always admired this sort of person. He also hoped that he wouldn't become enemies with this sort of person. Otherwise, he would have crushed him to death earlier. Mo Ping gave him a call at this time. Luonan grunted twice and said, We're meeting a few friends. We'll be down soon. You guys can just head downstairs. A message popped up in the mission window at this time. Luo Nan saw it and said, "I've already called a special car. It's in the parking lot on the 4th floor underground. You guys can head there directly. I guarantee that you'll be escorted to your doorstep. In any case, it's near the Nade district, right?" The so-called special car was actually arranged by He Yuan. She had swapped out the usual security car for a business car. It would be safer to take everyone away early. That thorough? Mo Peng clicked his tongue twice. But he had already been shocked many times today. There was no need to say too much about such a small matter. On the contrary, this phone call verified Luo Nan's words. Zhu Ling had no reason to keep them here. He gestured with his hand, sending them off. The group of people were walking out when Cat Eyes suddenly said, "Hey. Is there room for negotiation regarding your standard compensation?" Luo Nan and the others stopped walking when she opened her mouth. Zhu Ling did not expect this. He was startled for a moment before he said, "In principle. Like our boss. He has a clear record of fighting with the human-faced arachnid. His recent accomplishments are glorious. He defeated a B-rank cursemancer, a puppeteer and a fleshly body enhancer." Cat Eyes did not say the word kill in the military's domain. But she focused on the latter half of her words. "Like me. I'm an expert in long-range sensing and guidance. I've successfully cooperated with the military many times in the past. Are you guys going to use a fixed salary for an outstanding ability user like me?" Zhu Ling's mind wandered for a moment. He should be requesting instructions from his superiors through internal channels. He spoke a second later. "In order to avoid unnecessary links, the compensation is fixed. But if everyone participates in the operation and can make outstanding contributions, the relevant rewards will not be stingy. These have already been written into the document." Cat Eyes chased closely. "What about the designated item?" "Designated? I heard that the military's research and development of the long-range guidance platform is progressing quite well. They have already successfully manufactured a single soldier model. Can this be included in the scope of rewards or exchange? If it's possible, I can help out tonight." "Hey Cat Eyes!" Papercut shouted. Papercut had nothing to say when he saw Cat Eyes' innocent appearance. After all, he wasn't that familiar with Cat Eyes. It was hard not to feel a bit awkward. He had just said, "The boss is in charge." How come she was undermining him? How could he know that Cat Eyes was more than happy to undermine him, especially to a certain boss? Zhu Ling acted in a businesslike manner. "Lady Cat Eyes' long-range sensing ability is indeed an ability we need. If you don't mind, you can stay here for now. We will give you a reply after we consult with the equipment department." "Sure. I've been drooling over that single soldier platform for a long time. I definitely won't miss the chance to get my hands on it." Cat Eyes giggled, but her gaze cut to Luo Nan's side. It was quite subtle. Then she turned to Zhu Ling. "I'll say this in advance. I'm just a support job. I absolutely won't go to the front lines. We will arrange the most suitable position for every ability user." "I hope so." Cat Eyes smiled slightly. She raised her hand and wagged a finger at Luo Nan and the others. "Then it's settled. See you guys later." Shuelei was a bit stupefied. "Is this okay?" Regardless of whether it was okay or not, no one had anything to say. The event was over, so everyone naturally returned to their own homes. New events were another matter altogether. 4 people had come, but there were 3 when they left. After entering the elevator, Papercut couldn't help but say, "Brother, Cat Eyes really has quite a bit of an opinion of you. You really need to do more work in the future." Luo Nan's lips curled, but he didn't say anything. He was still pondering over the subtle gaze Cat Eyes had cast him before they parted. The group arrived at the 4th underground floor and quickly met up with Mo Peng and the others. Chiao Peipei's medical treatment was done quite well. Her injuries didn't need to be hospitalized, so she came down with them. Everyone had to split up at this time. Papercut and Shuelei weren't on the same path as them. Xia Junping, Hu Huaying, Du Yong and the Tian siblings either lived near the school or had their own transportation. The ones who were truly on the so-called special bus were the group from 6th High and the trader of 6th High, Luo Nan. As for the Yu siblings and Turner, Mo Han politely asked them and they smartly declined. They even expressed their apologies once more. So what? Things had come to this. Their friendship was most likely over. The group of boys and girls were affected by this and their moods were a bit low. Plus, Chiu Pei had suffered a blow to the head. She still had some symptoms, so she fell asleep in Mo Han's arms not long after they got on the bus. The bus was quite silent. Luo Nan sat in the very front row. The driver beside him was still a member of the society's security personnel, but he had switched shifts. It was no longer old Qin from the Colossal Arm Dojo. The two didn't have much to talk about, so it was quite peaceful. However, they had separated too quickly just now. A bunch of things were left unfinished. For instance, Du Yong specifically called Luo Nan to inform him as soon as possible if Luo Nan had any new insights into magical arrays. Du Yong hoped to continue the discussion tomorrow. Luo Nan vaguely agreed. Whether he agreed or not was another matter. Aside from this, the temporary mission window of the Hexier was quite lively. Practically no one approved of Cat Eye's choice, and it led to a small discussion. Cat Eyes recovered a bit of her refreshed spirit after they separated. She spoke with certainty. Seeking new things and taking risks are the true essence of life. Otherwise, what's the point of having extraordinary abilities? Just look at old you and you'll know. As long as you don't become an extraordinary, prolonging your life and staying young are just wishful thinking. You need to do things that normal people can't do in a short 100 years. Luo Nan thought that perhaps this was Cat Eye's true temperament. She was most likely depressed from being shackled by the chains during this period of time. Shui Lei showed signs of being convinced. Sister Cat Eye's words make sense. There's no need for me to take risks. But when I run the Daoguan, I'll exchange pointers with all sorts of experts. I'll fight a few rounds with powerful people. This is something that normal people can't do. Papercut sighed. You youngsters should just play by yourselves. I just want to take care of my family's little store and have a successful blind date along the way. Luo Nan didn't want to participate. He had already begun to pretend to be asleep in the car. In any case, he had drunk strong alcohol in broad daylight. There was a sufficient reason. Right now, he needed to pay full attention to Cloud City Water Village, which was getting further and further away. The Wraith sign was his main focus. If he didn't look after her, the chances of Lu coming out in one piece weren't high. But he couldn't resist Cat Eyes teasing him. Boss, what are you planning on doing? Are you going to continue being a boss, or are you going to advance again? What was advancing again? Luo Nan didn't consider it. And if it was about ideals, he sent a simple message. Formatting theory. Developing formatting theory and restoring his grandfather's reputation were his most pressing desires. These were not secrets within the society. His avatar on the psychic wave network was the classical structure of formatting theory. Cat Eyes seemed to be quite idle. She continued to speak. Really? Are you sure this is a pursuit and not a habit? Luo Nan didn't want to discuss such a mysterious topic. He simply used symbols to replace his answer. Chapter 412. Huh. You don't need it? Or do you feel that this method of communication isn't safe? In the next moment, the communication mode between Luo Nan and Cat Eyes entered a deeper mental domain. Through the pull of the living starry sky, they transmitted information back and forth. Cat Eyes chuckled, completely ignoring the strange gazes of Zhu Ling and the others. This is clearly the most straightforward way, but you still wanted me to come. What are you planning? You really lack a sense of trust. Luo Nan ignored Cat Eyes' ridicule and went straight to the point. What do you want to help me with? Cat Eyes was even more straightforward. You dare say that the human-faced arachnid that appeared in Cloud City Water Village has nothing to do with you? Luo Nan smacked his lips. He suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and continued to respond with a question. How much do you know? Hee hee, do you think I'm the only captive of those invisible chains of yours? If you can use this method to subdue me, why can't you use the same method to subdue the human-faced arachnid? Not to mention that many of your mental attacks are practically the same as the human-faced arachnids. Did you succeed at the Limestone Water Village pub? Cat Eyes had certainly hidden these words in her heart for a long time. Once they were spoken, they were unstoppable. Her logic was correct. There was a flaw in the time she obtained the human-faced arachnid, but this detail was no longer important. Luo Nan couldn't help but sigh. Why did she have to say it out loud? Didn't she know that the more it was like this, the more it was impossible for her to let go? Faster thief. Luo Nan felt that his selfishness was overflowing at this moment. It was just as Cat Eyes said. Luo Nan had invited her over without thinking about how to deal with her. Perhaps he felt guilty, but perhaps it was more to comfort her. This was selfishness. It wasn't strange, but he didn't expect it to be this strong. Perhaps he had never truly considered letting go of Cat Eyes. Tonight's invitation, was it just a hypocritical self-deception? It wasn't easy to recognize oneself, but it was even harder to recognize one's own shamelessness. Luo Nan's mind was stifled. He didn't know how to continue the conversation for a time. Perhaps Cat Eyes liked to see her boss speechless, but Luo Nan had been silent for far too long by the mission window. Papercut felt that it was very likely that Cat Eyes' habit had poked Luo Nan's sore spot. For a youngster, this was a good opportunity to correct his character. He also began to probe in circles. There's nothing wrong with getting used to it. Speaking of which, Nanster, what kind of activities do you prefer? Speaking, I like nothing in particular. How is that possible? For example, I like to play with handicrafts, especially paper cutting. That's how I got this nickname. When I was trying to figure out a technique, I felt that it was especially interesting. Have you ever had a similar feeling? Luo Nan hoped to use chatting to alleviate the pain of his self-dissection. He really did seriously ponder for a moment before replying, when I'm doing research. Occasionally. Papercut was speechless for a moment. You won't have any friends if you chat like this. But Luo Nan was speaking the truth. Most of his memories before he was 10 years old were blurry. Before he was born, his mother had already passed away. In the first few years of his life, his grandfather had been sent to prison, hospitalized, and his father had gone missing. All of these had been muddle-headed and filled with deep darkness. But after the age of 10, the impression was very deep. He copied his grandfather's experiments. Every time he succeeded or failed, he used himself as a living body. The fear he felt when he carried out the experiments and the joy he felt when he broke through were vivid in his mind. His daily life was just like that. If there was any joy, he could only find it in life. The topic of the temporary mission window was about to come to an end when Yuan, who hadn't participated all this time, suddenly sent a message. Extraordinary powers aren't the essential difference between humans. The difference between the inner world and the secular world is a false proposition. However, researching the essence of extraordinary powers or developing all sorts of new applications have always been the two most valuable options. Mr. Luo and Cat Eye's methods are both very meaningful. Cat Eyes sent a... She was speechless at Yuan's serious newscast. They were the boss and the secretary. What a good match. Whether or not it was reasonable, this sort of newscast was a great killing weapon that could destroy the atmosphere. The topic truly came to an end. Cat Eyes sent a private message from the Living Starry Sky channel. Have you noticed? Yuan is so full that she's about to overflow, but your life is so poor that it's pitiful. Cat Eyes found another angle to attack Luo Nan. She didn't hold back at all. Some people take hobbies as their ideals. Hobbies can be shifted. In the end, there is no limit. Some people chase after higher standards as their ideals. There is no limit to their desires. It is a lifelong pursuit. As for you, you seem to want to make up for your regrets. Boss, I'm very worried for you. Luo Nan didn't know what the latter half of his life would be like, but he knew that he needed to return to the main topic. He forcefully changed the topic. You're at the command center now? Aha. Excellent. Actually, Cat Eyes didn't know that she didn't need to take the initiative to help him. She was very useful as long as she was there. Luo Nan's field of view had shrunk quite a bit with the human-faced arachnid as a fulcrum after he left. But with the addition of Cat Eyes, the fulcrum and multi-angle observation, she was able to erect a relatively perfect observation scene. Not to mention that a portion of the wraith arachnid was inserted into the central nervous system of the enemy's brain. With this kind of support, Luo Nan could write his name backwards if the wraith sign was captured by these people again. However, Luo Nan slowly tasted the flavor. It seemed that the military's capture here wasn't particularly resolute. Yinlu should have sensed that something was wrong at this time with the society's leaky nature. She already had the tendency to leave before, but now she had a deep conversation with Chen Weiken. She slowly dug deeper and deeper into the essence of a matter of jealousy. Even Fan Chu's illegal operations were exposed. As a manager, he would rather spread his dirty linen in public and affect the image of the company. He didn't even consider cutting losses. What was the reason? It was probably the effect of beating the grass and startling the snake. Cat Eyes stood within the temporarily constructed frontline command center. The large screen in front of her displayed the reality monitoring image of Yinlu. The straightforward inclination caused her to be a bit surprised. You guys are suspecting her? Hey, this is a directional target, right? Zhu Ling responded simply. From the intelligence and performance, she's the biggest suspect. Cat Eyes hummed in response. She finally couldn't help but express her doubt in the mission window. Did they eat the wrong medicine? Why are they so generous? He Yuan responded in a timely manner. The society has already given you temporary authorization. You are currently the society's main contact in this matter. You possess the relevant authority. This was undoubtedly He Yuan's handiwork. Cat Eyes received this favor. She sent a thumbs-up emoticon expressing her admiration. At this time a person walked into the command center. He was dressed very casually. He wore a t-shirt, a sports sweater, jeans and white sneakers. He had a student's aura off the charts. Plus he had a personality that loved to laugh. The smile on his face never stopped. Cat Eyes communicated with Luo Nan. There are still ability users applying? I'm a bit unfamiliar. Before she could finish speaking, Zhu Ling had already stood at attention and saluted. Major General Tian. The person who came was undoubtedly Tian Bang. It was rumored that he had undergone modifications at a young age. He was a burner who controlled a regular combat unit. He was also a powerful B+ rank expert. But looking purely at his appearance, he seemed to be younger than Zhu Ling. Luo Nan confirmed. It's Tian Bang without a doubt. His outer appearance could confuse people, but the imprint in his mental domain was real. Luo Nan suddenly thought of something at this time. Asked Tian Bang about his age and the time of his modifications. Got it. Cat Eyes sent the information to the temporary mission window. There was nothing wrong with it. Asking someone face to face was abrupt and rude. It would be better to look up information on the situation. In any case, He Yuan was here. The answer came out very quickly. Tian Bang, 25 years old. The official information stated that he had undergone prosthetic reconstruction treatment since he was 5 years old. 20 years? Luo Nan couldn't help but speak. That's not right, right? It had only been 5 or 6 years since burner theory and technology had matured. Even if the previous time was included, it would be 10 years. There was still half of the time left. Seriously speaking, where had Yan Yongbo, the #1 burner, gone to eat shit? For this reason, He Yuan explained further. The early modifications were purely mechanical strengthening. It didn't involve the archetype formats theory. A cyborg? Yes, a cyborg. Do you guys look like one? Cat Eyes raised her eyebrows slightly. She opened up a shared perspective and shared the scene with He Yuan and the others. Luo Nan gave a silent praise. Cat Eyes' actions seemed casual, but she was actually covering for him. Many things would be much more convenient. Cat Eyes had a relaxed expression. She took the initiative to extend her hand and shake Tian Bang's hand. Major General Tian, I've heard of your great name for a long time. You're younger than I imagined. Lady Cat Eye's spectacular performance in 94 left a deep impression on everyone. That missile saved a great deal of time and perhaps the precious lives of soldiers. Perhaps it was because he held a high position, but Tian Bang spoke in a methodical manner. He was quite mature. But when paired with his casual attire and his smiling face that was like the sun, he gave off the feeling that he was reciting lines. Moreover, his acting skills were terrible. Luckily, Tian Bang quickly displayed the straightforwardness of a soldier. Frankly speaking, Lady Cat Eyes, the chances of you being used in this operation aren't high. But I hope that you can be prepared at all times. Once you are used, it will likely be a very thorny situation. Tian Bang suddenly grinned in amusement as he spoke. Actually, I hope that Mr. Luo can stay behind. After all, he's a publicly acknowledged psychic. Moreover, he has a record of successfully capturing traces of the human-faced arachnid. Cat Eyes responded lazily, that's quite unfortunate. Tian Bang wasn't that easy to dismiss. However, there's something I want to take the liberty of asking. Mr. Luo left in a hurry. Is it possible that you don't want to get involved in trouble? What I mean is, with Mr. Luo's psychic abilities, has he already discovered the human-faced arachnid? F***ck. Luo Nan's heart couldn't help but twitch. As for the temporary mission window, Papercut clicked his tongue twice. Nanster, this person has quite the confidence in you. Speaking of which, do you really have a reaction? Luo Nan replied, I have a reaction towards him. Back at the command center, Cat Eyes covered up once more. I'm not sure about that. But I didn't see him draw this time. According to your military's intelligence, isn't his psychic ability displayed through drawing? Tianbang's smile didn't diminish. He nodded and said, perhaps. Lady Cat Eyes, you don't need to pay too much attention to me. I'm just casually saying it. Cat Eyes silently cursed a smiling tiger. She didn't want to let this person feel comfortable. He extended his hand to point at the screen. Yin Lu was at the tip of his finger. Major General Tian, is it really good for you to be distracted all the time? I see that you've already locked onto the target. What do you want to do next? Speaking of which, are you targeting Yin Lu alone? Or is it the entire Blood Flame Order? I've heard that your military and the Blood Flame Order have been cooperating quite well. This time it was Tianbang's turn to evade. I'm the commander of the operation. I'm not responsible for considering other matters. Hey, they're finally moving. The screen showed that Yin Lu had finally ended her meaningless negotiation with Chen Weiqian. She left with her assistant and bodyguard. Chen Weiqian had already completed his mission relatively well. Naturally, he wouldn't stop them. But there was a question that needed to be clarified in the command center. Should we make a move? Tianbang shook his head. Follow procedure. Invite her to the identification room to record her privileges. Juling responded with a yes. But then he saw that Tianbang didn't make a move. He was a bit baffled. Everyone knew what recording privileges meant. Was Major General Tian not going to take a closer look? Tianbang shot a glance at Cat Eyes and grinned. She wasn't found before. The possibility of her being found now isn't high. It's good to let her go. She can leave this crowded area. We still need to thank her. Keep observing. Everyone. Yes. Juling immediately went out. He was prepared to personally act as a guide. Cat Eyes sent Luo Nan a private message. You didn't even find her. Are you helping? Luo Nan grunted and then sneered. This Tianbang is really a master who says one thing and means another. He talks casually, but he's still investigating behind the scenes. He's never relaxed. From Luo Nan's observation point of view, he could see the mental smoke still lingering. He didn't let any sliver of possibility slip by. Cat Eyes gave him a bit of praise. You've helped quite well. But the problem right now was that Yin Lu didn't know this. It was hard for her to pin her hopes on an illusory fluke. It wouldn't be strange if she made a wrong judgment or overreacted because of this. For example, Yin Li's expression could be considered calm, but her expression was very ugly. Her thoughts were extremely heavy. Up ahead, Juling was already waiting outside the elevator. Yin Lu had most likely seen him as well. But then, this woman suddenly made a large turn and walked into the washroom to the side. Her assistant and bodyguard stopped outside. Major General Tian? Juling practically thought that Yin Lu was trying to escape, but the command center didn't have an intense reaction. They just smoothly switched to the surveillance of the washroom. Yin Lu could be seen standing in front of the sink. She stared blankly at the mirror on the wall for a while. She ignored her exquisite makeup and twisted her head to face the gushing water column. Cat Eyes put herself in Luo Nan's shoes and made a preliminary judgment. She's determined to fight with her life on the line. Hey, I'm talking to you. Luo Nan didn't respond because he was listening attentively. He was listening to the whispered conversation that was currently echoing from within the Wraith Sign's body above the mountain peak of the Blood Soul Temple. The Blood Flame Order didn't choose the communication tools of the secular world. Instead, they used the Wraith Sign to directly communicate with Yin Lu. The special intent that was transmitted was undoubtedly that of the Order's High Priest, Mrs. Halder. This leader of the Blood Flame Order didn't involve herself in any messy details. Chapter 413. Yin Li's first reaction was to try again. Boss, I can try. You don't have the qualifications to take the risk. The one who responded was Mo Luan, the most senior elder of the Order. His thoughts entered the space of the Blood Soul Temple. His mood was extremely terrible and his tone was unprecedentedly harsh. Yin Lu didn't give up so easily. Boss, Mr. Mo Luan, the military has a special method of luring the human-faced arachnid. The mold will definitely not be able to resist. If it is lured to death, then all of our efforts these days will be wasted. At the same time, she denied everything she had done today. Fool. Mo Luan's thoughts were like the heat waves of a desert storm. They came roaring over. You have already done something wrong. Don't try to use your wrong train of thought to remedy it. Look at the military's battle array. They are just luring a human-faced arachnid to death? They are luring us, the Order of Blood Flame, to death. If we immediately release it now, at least we won't be wiped out by the military in one fell swoop because of this. Mrs. Halder was much calmer. She waited for Mo Luan to vent for a while before slowly sending over a calm thought. Immediately release it and then return. The more you do this, the more you can protect the mold. Since they are targeting the Order, it is very likely that they will treasure it more than we do. Yinlu was stunned. Mrs. Halder continued to speak. Release it according to the grazing law. We will still have priority. As long as the enemy doesn't truly want to exterminate it, we 4 shepherds will have the ability to summon it back. We have a lot of room to operate. Now execute it. Yes. Yinlu closed her eyes. Her face drooped even lower. The surging water blocked the changes in her expression. It also masked the incantation that was weak to the point of being inaudible. Everything was carried out in extreme secrecy. However, this could not be hidden from Luonan. Luonan sat in the front row of the private car that was constantly moving away. His head was drooped as if he was in a dream. Actually, he was paying attention to what was happening in Cloud City Water Village. He saw the marvelous connection between the Wraith Sign and Yinlu. It was like a spider thread that gradually grew longer and longer. It grew weaker and weaker. At this time, Yinlu gave the Wraith Sign one last command. She told it to hide in the deepest parts of the mental plane. It was to stay as far away from this area as possible. Most importantly, it absolutely could not approach the material plane to hunt. After the command was given, the spider silk finally reached its limit and silently collapsed. In essence, Yinlu no longer had any connection with the Wraith Talisman. But due to the Blood Soul Temple's existence, Yinlu and the other 3 priests still had a slight connection. If necessary, they could use a special ceremony to locate and capture the Wraith Talisman. Of course, the premise of all of this was that the human-faced arachnid could survive until then. Luonan's mind stirred slightly. He practically wanted to recall the Wraith Sign back and distance himself from this troublesome place. But as he thought about it, he didn't make a move. In front of the sink, Yinlu lightly coughed and slightly opened her mouth. Diluted blood mixed with lipstick flowed down. She closed her eyes and let the water wash over her, washing away as much of her exhaustion and frustration as she could. Release was a method that tested her ability to control herself. She more or less suffered some backlash. But she did not care about the injury. She was only worried about how long the binding command could suppress the Wraith Sign's strong hunting instinct. Deep down she was quite pessimistic. Roughly half a minute later, Yinlu finally stood up and touched up her makeup so that she wouldn't look too pathetic. Wasting precious time on this could be considered a form of exquisite self-abandonment. While Yinlu was touching up her makeup in the washroom, the military had completely activated their response mechanism. They made sure that they were loose on the outside but tight on the inside. The main route from the washroom, the elevator, to the identification room with recording privileges, as well as several possible escape routes, were all targeted by the debilitating weapon. They could be fired at any time. Tianbang said that it was strange, but he was already accumulating power and waiting for action. As long as Yinlu made any extreme movements, he would be the first to launch an attack. But after 5 long minutes, they were greeted with a tired, depressed, calm and cold Yinlu. Aside from her pale complexion, there was nothing abnormal about her. Yinlu took her assistant and bodyguard to the VIP elevator. This was in line with the military's expectations. She just so happened to bump into the guide, Zhu Ling. Manager Yin, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Zhu Ling of the Coastal Defense Army's Special Forces Brigade. I've already heard. Search for the human-faced arachnid. Yinlu raised her chin slightly. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. You guys have chosen a good place. Do you think that the brand of Frost River reality is enough for a few rounds? Zhu Ling was speechless. Yinlu was the first to walk to the elevator. Follow the procedure. Hurry up. I still have things to do tonight. Don't waste time. For both parties involved, the following procedure was so smooth that it made people feel complicated. From the time Yinlu entered the elevator to the identification room, to the time she left, not even 5 minutes had passed. Then, nothing happened. Whether it was the detection equipment or Tianbang's secret spying, they did not find any abnormalities related to the human-faced arachnid. If he punched the air, he would really suffer internal injuries. Even when Yinlu and her party went downstairs, got in the car and left. The operation personnel gathered around Aurora Cloud City still did not believe it. It was over just like this. Zhu Ling, who walked back, probably had this kind of expression. Tian Bang did not comfort his subordinates. He just rubbed his smooth chin and smiled. This time the general staff finally has a chance to perform. Let's execute Plan B. Miss Cat Eyes, it looks like we'll have to fight overtime. Are you going to pay up and leave or stay up late with everyone? Where will the overtime be held? We're not going to move for now. I believe our prey can't run far. Is there wine? How about pure grain wine? If it can be paired with the military's personal combat platform technology catalog, the flavor will be even better. Cat Eyes was playing with the mood while sending a vomiting emoji at the temporary mission window. Strong start but weak finish. What the hell is this? Secretary, hurry up and tell me. Should I stay? He Yuan quickly replied, I suggest you leave. The conflict will most likely occur between Tian Bang and the Blood Flame Order. There is no need for a member of the society to get involved. Has the military been rushing towards the Blood Flame Order since the beginning? Tian Bang isn't from the military. But there's something going on. He Yuan's reply was cut off. Papercut was afraid that He Yuan would be angry. He hurriedly said, Secretary, help me analyze this. What in the world is going on tonight? Several seconds passed before He Yuan sent another message. From the looks of it, Tian Bang has confirmed that the Blood Flame Order is raising human-faced arachnids for special purposes. From a legal perspective, as long as we can find concrete evidence, we can deal a heavy blow to the Blood Flame Order. But it won't be easy to get rid of the Blood Flame Order. Papercut had a serious attitude towards the discussion. Right now, the city-state development is very obvious. The Blood Flame Order just needs to move out of Xia City in time. Even if they hurt their vitality, they might rise again in a few years. Madame Halder has this ability. Speaking of which, the core strength of the order hasn't increased in recent years, but the business they do is flourishing. Yes. The Castle Financial Group under Madame Halder has been carrying out continuous industrial expansion for the past 2 years. They are no longer limited to just Xia City. They have set a very high stop-loss line. If they were to cut them off quickly, the military and political departments of Xia City might not be able to achieve complete success even if they really wanted to exterminate them. Luonan had heard He Yuan mention the concept of a stop-loss line more than once. It was originally a concept in stock trading. It was used to describe the bottom-line thinking when designing tactics and formulating plans. It was a method that He Yuan held in high esteem. If we don't consider legal factors for the time being, there isn't much meaning in targeting a declining order that has focused on commercial development in recent years. And if we really consider legal factors, Tian Bang's actions today aren't perfect in terms of procedure. He Yuan's expression was quite tactful, but Luonan couldn't help but interrupt when he heard her. Sister Yuan, are you saying that Tian Bang's will is very likely involved in this operation? He Yuan didn't directly answer. In any case, the Xia City government has endorsed this operation. Tian Bang holds the advantage of legal factors. His combined strength far exceeds that of the Blood Flame Order. Madame Halder is dealing with every move as it comes. At the very least, she is cutting off the human-faced arachnid perfectly. They all have a certain amount of backup. They have some crucial information that we don't possess. The focus of the conflict is likely to shift. Therefore, I suggest that Cat Eyes withdraw early and stay out of this matter. Cat Eyes spoke. I will consider it. At the same time, she sent a message through the living starry sky. So, boss? Cat Eyes adopted a posture of completely obeying his orders, giving Luonan quite a bit of pressure. From Luonan's perspective, the most realistic consideration was to grasp this opportunity and retrieve the Wraith sign. Actually, Luonan had plenty of opportunities. Whether it was the Blood Flame Order or the military, they had all lost control of the Wraith sign's current situation. Luonan just needed a thought to drag the Wraith sign back from the polar domain. From now on, the military and the Blood Flame Order would no longer have anything to do with it. However, just as He Yuan analyzed this, there was a factor that needed to be considered. That, regardless of whether or not Tian Bang could represent the military, regardless of whether or not the Blood Flame Order had the power to reverse the situation, both sides displayed the confidence that they could overturn the situation at any time. This made Luonan very concerned. Their backup was Luonan's tail. If he didn't handle it properly, it would be the same as adding 2 more powerful enemies to him. What should he do? Luonan didn't immediately reply to Cat Eyes. Instead, he closed his eyes in contemplation. There were too many things to handle. His brain couldn't bear it for a time. He instinctively reached out his hand and touched the loose-leaf notebook on his knees. It was said that a good memory was inferior to a lousy pen. At this time it was extremely good to be able to write and draw. But right now the car was full of people. If he wanted to do some creative work, he might really be dragged out and tormented. Mo Peng and Mo Han were capable of doing such things. Luonan changed his method in a flash. He used the external neuron to open up the drawing software for the flexible e-ink screen in his mind. He created a new blank page and began to toss and turn on it. "Boss, are you asleep?" Cat Eyes urged him for the second time. Luonan didn't answer. He organized his thoughts. His goal was very clear. He wanted to retrieve the Wraith sign and then stop the lost line. The discussion just now gave him a hint. Once you have a goal, you need to consider the worst-case scenario and do your best to avoid it. Set a lower limit for yourself. The Blood Flame Order's methods were worth learning, but it was impossible to sever the connection between Luonan and the Wraith sign. Any attempt to sever it would be a joke. Once discovered, they would be like ants on a string. No one would be able to escape. In addition, his control over the Wraith sign was number 1. There was no way he could give it away even if he wanted to. Taking a step back, he could only hide it from others. Luonan had this ability. As long as he didn't alarm the 2 great gods of his own society, there didn't seem to be anyone else in Xia City who could explore the polar domain. At most, he wouldn't let the Wraith sign appear in the future. Don't let others see it. Hide. 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 Huh. Luonan's mind suddenly went ding. A light bulb lit up. This was the feeling. God, he actually forgot about that place. Boss. My boss? Cat Eyes was already about to sing a little tune out of boredom. She changed the way she summoned him. Luonan's mind was bursting with inspiration. It was the time for him to write like a god. He first used a few simple keywords to retain his general train of thought. Only then did he divert a portion of his attention. He even carried a bit of excitement as he shouted back, "Shut up. Go drink your wine." "TSK. Are you expressing your dissatisfaction with me?" Luonan transformed the burst of inspiration into glyphs, pictures, and everything else that could be understood. Everything was simple during this period. He spoke incoherently. "No, Cat Eyes. I need you. I really need you. Yes. That's it. What? Right now you just wait there. Wait until..." Luonan suddenly opened his eyes. He turned his head to ask the driver, "Around what time do we get home?" Luonan had been resting with his eyes closed all this time. His sudden words really did give the driver a scare. Finally, this professional driver passed the test. He quickly guessed the answer, around 9:30 at the latest. Luonan made an okay gesture. It was just like the tactical movements Cragburst had taught him. There was a strong sense of ritual. As for whether the driver understood or not, it was none of his business. "Listen, Cat Eyes. You wait there until around 10 o'clock. There's still an hour. Will the overtime be that long? Relax. They'll be very busy tonight. I'll contact you again." Luonan unilaterally disconnected his mental connection with Cat Eyes. He began to link together various keywords and expand a step further. At the same time, he printed a simple topographical map of the large living area, Acumen College, and even the Pingjiang district. Electronic drawings and mental drawings were just that fast. In the end, the tip of the pen drew a heavy circle in the swamp jungle of Acumen College. Luonan let out a long breath. He was certain that his train of thought had finally connected. He looked at the sloppy draft of the plan and suddenly wanted to laugh. "Look, my stop-loss line is higher than you can imagine." The car stopped at this time. They had arrived at Chiu Peipei's home for the first stop. Mo Peng and Mo Han wanted to get off the car and explain things to the parents of Chiu Peipei. How could Luonan care about these things? For the sake of avoiding being disturbed by these mundane matters, he didn't care about the itinerary he had just asked for. He closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. He really did sleep this time. He even had a dream. Even in his dream, he was still organizing the draft of the plan. He combed through the details one by one, endlessly enriching the topographical map, the living starry sky and other elements. Chapter 4:14. The night sky was misty and the street lights extended one after another, merging into the lights on both sides. It was the time when the night view of the city was at its most beautiful. The neighborhood was also brightly lit. There were even people holding parties at home. It was very lively. Luo Nan raised his head to look at the night sky. His feet didn't walk in a straight line. It seemed that his eyes were a bit hazy from sleep and his soul was in a trance. Mo Peng was filled with admiration towards Luo Nan's ability to sleep just like that. At the same time, Mo Peng was filled with admiration towards Luo Nan's ability to mingle in Acumen College by himself. In response, Mo Peng's curiosity was about to climb out of his throat. How did you do it? I didn't see any talent like yours in 6th High. Hey, wake up. Luo Nan pulled his gaze away from the night sky and looked straight ahead. It could be seen that he really hadn't heard it, but his eyes were frighteningly bright. Hey, when did this kid learn to wear contact lenses? They had already arrived at the doorstep of their home. Mo Peng seized the last opportunity to move closer and embrace Luo Nan's neck. Come. Tell me. How did you get into that circle? Before he could finish his sentence, the door opened. Luo Xian stood at the door and stared at them. What are you mumbling about when you're already home? Oh, who drank? He sighed. Mo Peng's elbow loosened, and he watched as Luo Nan tunneled under his elbow like a loach. He tunneled in and out from Luo Xian's side, breaking through the living room's defenses in the blink of an eye. He scuttled up to the 2nd floor and tossed down a few words from afar. I went to bed early today. Mo Haiheng, who was sitting idly in the living room, raised his head. He looks pretty excited. Did he really drink too much? Luo Xian was stunned for a moment and then loudly ordered, I want to take a bath. She faintly heard Luo Nan agree. Only then did she turn her head to stare at Mo Peng. Where did you guys go to play today? Why are you so drunk? Don't you know she's still a minor? Mo Peng was blocked at the door. His face was full of grief and indignation. He cursed in his heart, if you want to scold people, go find someone to drink. Who is your son? Perhaps it really was because of the effects of alcohol. Luo Nan entered his own room, closed the door and leaned against the door. His heart thumped loudly and his chest faintly trembled. Of course, the most important reason was still nervousness. Whether it was the battle with Jack on the recycling stratum, the confrontation with the Order of Justice at Frost River Reality, or the conflict with the Society at Ocean Sky Cloud City, all of these were sudden incidents. He had been forced to a dead end, so he had no right to be nervous. This was the first time he had acted according to his own will. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Luo Nan took a deep breath and placed the notebook in his hands on the windowsill. Below it was his grandfather's notebook. The two notebooks fit together perfectly without the slightest deviation. Glancing at the bedside clock, it was 9:37. The driver's estimation was quite accurate. There's still time. He went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. The hot water sprayed out and the steam quickly covered the bathroom. Even if his aunt hadn't mentioned it, he would have taken a hot bath. He stood naked under the water column, the hot water splashing on his head and rolling on his body. This caused the blood flow to accelerate, the metabolism rate to increase, and the liver function to operate effectively. This accelerated the decomposition of alcohol in the body, turning it into hot sweat that was mixed with the water and seeped out. The steam was stuffy and humid, but his mind became clearer and clearer, and it did not affect him from continuing to outline his plan. His draft plan. The drawing software page in his mind seemed to have become much richer. In particular, the outline of the streets around the large living area had changed from rough to detailed. The key details, such as the layout of the military personnel that he had detected earlier, were also clearly depicted. It was as if there was an invisible assistant helping him complete the post-production work. Luo Nan scratched his head and thought back to the nap he had in the car just now. He still had some vague memories. Could it be that there really was a subconscious action in that dream just now? If there was, then it should be the combined effect of self-awareness, soul strength, external neuron, and special drawing software. It looked quite marvelous, but there were precedents in the society. Mr. Bai's dream entering technique was this type of approach. Luo Nan didn't plan on diverting his attention to research for the time being. He hastily washed up and confirmed that most of the alcohol had been released from the steam. Then he wiped his body dry and lay back on the bed. The effects of the alcohol had been reduced to a minimum, but he was still excited. It was especially obvious after he closed his eyes. Luonan read through the draft plan step by step with these thoughts in mind. His thoughts sketched out a large background screen, and the corresponding train of thought flowed on the virtual drawing. Unknowingly, his consciousness floated past the boundary between the real and the virtual, touching upon the twin fulcrums formed by the human-faced arachnid and cat eyes. The living starry sky 80 kilometers away and the scene of reality were mapped over. Even though he hadn't personally experienced the scene, everything he saw was true. His thoughts traversed the air and locked onto his target. Layers of ripples undulated within the wine cup. Cat eyes held the wine cup and looked at the fine ripples within. Her thoughts moved away from the flexible screen in her other hand and she seemed to be deep in thought. Two soft sounds rang out. Zhu Ling had temporarily assumed the role of an orderly. He placed 2 small plates on the coffee table and matched them with chopsticks. Then he quietly left. A plate of boiled peanuts and a plate of cold pig head meat. They were the most ordinary of dishes. However, this was the frontline command center of Aurora Cloud City. A lounge next to it. The air was filled with the fragrance of wine. From the perspective of military morale, it was indeed necessary to open up a separate lounge. I feel like something's wrong. Pure grain wine doesn't have side dishes to go with it. What's the point? Tianbang picked up a peanut and sent it to his mouth. He paired it with a mouthful of wine and his features wrinkled up on his excessively young face. He looked like a glutton. Then he leaned back comfortably and leaned against the back of the sofa. Even though it's just a side dish, the control of the heat is quite attentive. Cat eyes shot him a glance. She was very interested in the changes in his expression. Tianbang was amused. Aren't you curious? How can a robot have a taste? Cat eyes was speechless for a time. Tianbang's features stretched out once more as he looked up at the ceiling. The lights of the lounge shone on his face, glistening and sparkling. His face couldn't be considered particularly handsome, but the contours were clear and distinct. It truly had the texture of a sculpture. It also made one curious. What proportion of the metal structure was hidden beneath his skin? He extended 3 fingers and placed them horizontally in front of his face. The human body transformation must retain 3 points. The first is perception. This is the boundary between you and me. The second is thought. Through it, one can grasp the power of experience. The third is emotion. Through this, one can obtain vitality and spirituality. Only by retaining these 3 points, or by strengthening and transforming on these 3 points, can it be considered a success. Cat eyes swirled the wine in her cup. Are there still people who don't transform like this? Generally speaking, it was after the burner technology appeared. Therefore, I am very grateful to the creator of this technology. It may not be perfect, but it leads to the correct reasoning. Tianbang stretched out his arms and curled them up. Looking at it with the naked eye, one could see the flow of his muscles. However, Cat Eye's sensitive ears could still hear the fine sound of metals scraping against each other. Having experienced the stupid old-fashioned transformation, I can understand this point even more. I am very envious of those who walk the right path from the start. I yearn even more for the outstanding ones. Cat Eyes swirled her wine cup and suddenly laughed in spite of herself. You're very sensitive. I didn't say anything. Really? Tianbang put on a look of surprise. Fine. I'm just being honest. I feel a bit inferior. I'm also using this to express my feelings. There should be people watching me right now, right? Tianbang's gaze pierced over with his final words. Though he was smiling, his gaze was filled with pressure. Luonan's heart spasmed and Cat Eyes raised her eyebrows. The two were on the living starry sky plane. Their consciousnesses were connected. At this time, the mission window on the psychic wave network jumped. Papercut, who had returned home, sent a message. Hiss. This fellow. Shuele quickly responded. He knows that we're sharing a perspective. Yes. He was talking about the psychic wave network. Luonan's taut heartstrings relaxed. He saw Tianbang raise a finger. This is an old trick of your society. And I know that there must be someone I know. Cat Eyes asked with interest, who is it? Well, Tianbang suddenly leaned forward and shouted, Hello, Sister Yuan. Let's drink later. I'll confess to you when I get drunk. His voice was very loud. Even the private lounge could not withstand it. The sound waves rushed out and scattered throughout the frontline command center. Not only were there technical elites of the military here, but there were also police bureaucrats and members of the government's security department. The atmosphere was bewildered and awkward for a time. Zhu Ling, who was temporarily in command, had a headache. He even began to doubt his life. Was it really the right decision for him to transfer to the Special Forces Brigade? Ah! Cat Eyes burst into laughter. She rocked back and forth so much so that her hair covered her eyes. She brushed it aside, revealing her plump forehead. She could not help but sigh in admiration. Truly extraordinary courage. At the same time, she sent a private message to Luo Nan. Do you want to get rid of him? He's trying to steal your secretary. What does this have to do with me? Luo Nan was inexplicably unhappy. The temporary window strangely quieted down. There was no movement. However, Papercut and the others were certainly behind the window with their ears and eyes open. They were paying close attention. As for whether or not He Yuan was there, he was probably there. Cat Eyes didn't care about what the others were feeling. She raised her cup to Tianbang and said, "You're quite an interesting person. Come come come. Cheers." Tianbang cheerfully raised his cup in response. "I've always felt that special people like us don't need to worry about our livelihood. Then in this world, honesty is the greatest virtue. Cheers to honesty." The two raised their cups and clinked. They were in high spirits as they drank to their heart's content. Finally, Papercut couldn't hold it in any longer at the mission window. He asked the others for their thoughts. "Master, are you still watching?" Luo Nen didn't reply. He just lay on the bed. His excited emotions had returned and they were undulating like waves. This wasn't his first time experiencing this. It was the same last time. He was also in the position of a spectator. However, the spectators weren't the two people in front of him. They were Peony and Long Seven. Whether it was Peony, Long Seven, or the current Tianbang, their personalities were all different. However, all of them had outstanding personalities. They were thickly painted characters. They could be recognized at a glance when placed in a crowd. It could be said that they radiated radiance in all directions. In comparison, Luo Nan was like an incorporeal soul. He floated in the nothingness, hiding behind the shadows. He watched these people radiate with dazzling radiance, painting the otherwise ordinary environment with magnificent colors. Though he had similar experiences, he might not be able to achieve that calm and composed, magnanimous and fearless style in his entire life. He always believed that this was a factor of personality. Perhaps this was indeed the case. However, Tianbang's words today pointed out another crucial factor. He had to be honest. Chapter 4:15. Luo Nan had to admit that he was in a bad mood. As for the root of his bad mood, it had been a bit chaotic before, but now it was becoming more and more clear. He was offended. The reason sounded laughable, but it was the truth. Tianbang, this fellow, had a powerful charisma that could make Cat Eyes gasp in admiration. He used this charisma to forcefully seduce He Yuan. One was Luo Nan's believer, and the other was Luo Nan's secretary. So Luo Nan knew that even though he expressed his unwillingness to act as a god on the surface, or even in his rational consciousness, he respected He Yuan greatly. But deep down he still enjoyed the convenience and vanity that came with this relationship. So his heart still wished to maintain this relationship, and he rejected all elements that could harm this relationship. This kind of thinking was actually not strange. Everyone had the instinct to benefit themselves. But the crux of the problem was just as Tianbang had said. What about being honest? What he desired, what he hoped for, what he was good at, what he was good at, what he was good at. It was like a bright pearl illuminating the night. It was like a treasured sword breaking out of a sheath. It was naturally seen by others and it was breathtaking. But if he kept it hidden, not to mention others not knowing, even he himself would be confused over time. Luo Nan had provoked many enemies and he bore many secrets. Hiding a few tricks to confuse others was something he should do, but he could not deceive himself because of this. Not being honest to others could be considered an expedient measure. Not being honest to himself was tantamount to burying and self-destructing. F***ck. Luo Nan flipped over and sat up. His two palms slapped his cheeks. He used an unprecedented frank attitude to face his own heart. Fine, he was protecting his food. He was also envious and jealous. He was like a child that had not grown up. He was instinctively protective of his food. He was sufficiently selfish, and he hid all of this under his childish exterior. Moreover, he compared himself with Peony Long 7 and Tianbang. He envied their toughness and straightforwardness, and he envied their ease and ease. These two elements were mixed together to contradict and clash with each other. They were tangled and awkward, and they made him subconsciously believe that he was a head lower than these elite figures. In fact, Luo Nan was far inferior in terms of mental maturity. It had nothing to do with his realm. It had nothing to do with his nature being good or bad. He just could not get past the hurdle in his heart. He had to be honest to himself. Luo Nan let out a long breath. His upper body slapped down heavily and he lay down once more, closing his eyes. At this moment his eyes could not see and his ears could not hear. But with cat eyes and the human-faced arachnid as a fulcrum, his thoughts expanded to encompass the enormous Aurora cloud capital and its surrounding region. The body is here but the heart is there. The soul has not moved but the intention has come. Luo Nan's body and soul were still 80 kilometers away, but his consciousness was flowing in the air above the large living area. He was like a mysterious eye that knew all things. The night spread out under their feet. The skyscrapers, the campus, and the jungle in the distance formed the background. Brilliant lights and neon lights gathered like the sea and flew like fog, engraving the traces of human civilization consciousness in every corner of the light, turning this area into a bustling place and a city that never sleeps. At this time the skyscrapers were still crowded with people. Tourists and players shuttled up and down, completely unaware that there were military personnel standing guard at every key point. They were gradually diverting the flow of people. Of course, the flow of people was endless. Cloud City Water Village had many five-star hotels, over 1,000 large and medium-sized companies and shopping malls. The tourists, residents, and overtime workers numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Even the military and the government could not control this flow of people in a short amount of time. If they were to act too hastily, there might even be chaos. The military and the government could not control this flow of people, but in a certain sense Luo Nan could. On the mental plane, where matter photons were unable to reach, the turbid flow of emotions, spirituality, and thoughts interweaved and surged violently. Perhaps there was a difference between the pure and the turbid, but when they came together the pure became turbid and the turbid became even more turbid. The layers crisscrossed and became chaotic. However, Luo Nan's mysterious eye bestowed a unique order to the turbid flow through his clairvoyance. The living starry sky covered as far as his mental senses could reach. The lives, desires, thoughts, and spirituality of tens of thousands of people were combined and mapped. They transformed into life sketches, forming groups of astrological constellations. Through this form, every person's imprint throbbed within the living starry sky. In the end, they converged into a hazy river of stars that stretched across the horizon. The radiance of the converging stars was far too dazzling. If one stared at it for a long time, one would see a boundless expanse. It was like a desert of light. And the core of the bright radiance was Luo Nan's self-format. He resided at the very center of millions and millions of stars. He became the core of the operation of the starry sky. Formatting theory bestowed this ability upon him. He wanted to maintain. No, he wasn't frank enough. The more straightforward answer was that he didn't want to be inferior to anyone. He could even go a step further. It didn't matter if he was low-key or high-key. He wanted to become the core of the crowd. He wanted to be the most unique one. In the past he clearly loathed this type of fellow who didn't say what he meant. He believed himself infallible. So it was like repelling each other. The problem was he unable to do it? His body and soul had yet to move. Only a strand of his consciousness remained here. It was equivalent to opening a client, logging onto the network, and engaging in a marvelous strategy game. As for the medium of operation, in the depths of nothingness, the malevolent human-faced arachnid's 8 legs moved. It stealthily leaped from one curtain after another on the mental plane. It was the same as swimming between the densely packed stars of the living starry sky. It was like a dark specter flitting past a window. It could transform into a deathly nightmare at any time. Its long, sharp legs cut into the window and preyed upon the unaware life force and spirituality within. Because of this, Luo Nan could practically obliterate any person covered by the living starry sky at any time. He was the ruler of these thousands upon thousands of lives. And a mere human-faced arachnid was just the tip of the iceberg of his completely sealed system. His body and soul had yet to arrive, but his thoughts came first. He used reality as the background and lives as the chess pieces. He stirred the vortex of wind and clouds. Whether it was Tianbang, Peony or Long Seven who could do this. Wasn't this what made him unique? Wasn't this a height that others would never be able to reach? Suddenly, Luo Nan tore away his skin that was on the verge of rotting. He fiercely pounded his own chest with a fist. His consciousness rumbled. Does this feel good? The wraith sign let out a soundless roar and suddenly sped up its pace. It made a few consecutive leaps and quickly approached the material plane. At this very moment, the wraith sign no longer concealed its tracks and traces. It no longer concealed its intense desire to prey. Instead, it followed its instincts to forcefully absorb the various waveforms of the airflow. It sniffed and locked onto its target, aiming its ugly mouthpiece at the target it had long since confirmed. Luo Nan confirmed that there was no mistake about the target, so he unlocked the final privileges of the wraith sign. Go, the game has begun. The mental plane and the material plane converged noiselessly. The window was like a decaying and frail ruin. It collapsed in an instant. The occupant, inside, was completely unaware until the ice-cold claws of the demon pierced through it. A sharp screech surged and spread from the boundary between the mental and the material plane at this time. In the lounge of the frontline command center of Aurora Cloud City, Tianbang's wine cup stopped by his lips. He paused for a moment before withdrawing it. He faced Cat Eyes across from him and said apologetically, "It looks like we can only chat back." Human-faced arachnid, huh? Cat Eyes raised her cup in response. "I wish that both of us will get what we want." Tianbang didn't fully understand this well-meaning congratulatory speech. Then Zhu Ling's voice came from next door in the next second. "Enemy attack. Fragrant bait number 4. A second later, Zhu Ling hurriedly pushed open the door to the lounge. He stood straight and saluted. "Major General Tian, the direction of the target has been confirmed. Fragrant bait number 4 has been killed in the southwest." By the time Zhu Ling came in to report, the frontline command center next door was already clamoring with noise. The projection screen split into different sections. It summarized the surveillance information from the sky, every important floor, ground, and underground. There were also various waveform monitors that dazzled the eyes. Common and uncommon waveform images and data were displayed in rows and rows. Every second there would be an obvious and unobvious refresh. Tianbang maintained his original sitting posture. He held his wine cup in a leisurely manner. He didn't need to go to the command center. He could receive and analyze an enormous amount of information through the built-in transceiver apparatus. Moreover, in the mental domain, no matter how precise the military's detection apparatus was, it could not compare to his own seasoned mental fire and smoke senses. Cat Eyes could not do what he did. Even though the root of the current turmoil should be her boss, her senses were still fuzzy. She simply picked up the sunglasses that the military had temporarily gifted her and placed them on the bridge of her nose. The special information receiving equipment could select the corresponding surveillance footage, and it could also seamlessly connect to the results of the military's radar scans. Cat Eyes first looked at the situation at fragrant bait number 4. It was easy to recognize. It was the entrance to an underground parking lot beneath Aurora Cloud City. At this time, a circle of people blocked the entrance. Some were standing and some were lying down. Some of the people lying down were wrapped in sturdy exoskeleton battle armor. The interception power of the relevant direction has been lost. The AI's alarm reverberated. Actually, there was no need to say much. Just by looking at the formation of the relevant personnel, they did not have the slightest bit of combat power. The human-faced arachnid has broken through the inner southwest defensive line. Rather than saying this was a report, it was better to say that Zhu Ling exclaimed in surprise. Tianbang did not give any instructions because at this moment, the consciousness of this B+ rank burner was wrapped in intense mental fire and smoke. He was rushing towards the location where the human-faced arachnid had appeared. He Yuan's message popped up on the mission window. Switch radar data. Didn't you want them to leave early? Cat Eyes stabbed at the mission window, but she still switched the live surveillance footage to data mode. In an instant, large amounts of graphics, wavebands, and relevant data symbols flooded the screen. They were synchronized to the mission window through a shared perspective. The mission window flickered continuously. Shuelei could not help but complain, "I don't understand it at all." Papercut admitted defeat. I only know that it has to do with waveband absorption. Then I use this as material to calculate the probability of the human-faced arachnid's location. I don't understand the specifics either. I just want to know. What is fragrant bait number 4? Just as Papercut spoke, a sudden and continuous wave crest suddenly rose on the flowing waveband graph. It pushed all the way to the highest limit of the graph. Before the scale unit changed, a nearly straight line was drawn out. Juling also noticed this change. He contacted the command center in a low voice. What's the situation? Number 1 has made contact with the target. They are engaged in shallow combat. They have disappeared. The tone of the technician's voice changed. It could be heard clearly through a wall.